Konnichiwa, everyone. Welcome back to the Deep Dive podcast, where we bravely explore the big questions in life, like why do humans argue on the internet? And how close can a gorilla get to you before you regret your career choices? I'm your solo host for today, your nerdy companion wandering through history like a lost tourist holding a map upside down. And today's topic? Oh yes, we're going full National Geographic meets CSI Rwanda. Strap in, Yadada, strap in.
So let's talk about Dian Fossey, a woman who woke up one day and basically said, you know what? I'm done with normal life. I want to go hang out with wild mountain gorillas instead. And you gotta respect that. She dedicated her life to saving them from extinction. But then, the story takes a twist. In 1985, she was found murdered in her cabin. Brutal, unsolved, and mysterious. So, how on earth did an occupational therapist with a fear of heights even get there in the first place? How did she end up saving an entire species?
You might look at this list of challenges on the left and think, no way. But the guy who hired her, the famous paleoanthropologist Louis Leakey, he had a wild theory. He believed that women without formal scientific training were actually better for this kind of work. Why? Because they'd be unbiased, tenacious, and wouldn't be stuck in old, rigid ways of thinking. And boy, was he right. Fossey's unwavering determination and her pure, deep love for animals, those became her superpowers.
Okay, so how do you actually get close to a 400-pound silverback without, becoming a snack? Well, Dian Fossey basically wrote the manual. She threw out the old playbook of just watching from a distance. Instead, she started acting like a gorilla. She'd copy the sounds they made while eating, learn their different kinds of belches, which are actually signs of contentment, and she'd even get down on the ground and knuckle walk. And get this, that classic King Kong chest beat? Turns out that's actually a sign of alarm or distress. She completely flipped the script, showing the world that these weren't violent monsters, but gentle, complex giants.
And her methods worked so well that it led to one of the most amazing moments ever filmed. When the legendary David Attenborough visited her, he was able to just sit there, completely surrounded by these incredible animals. They were playing with him, climbing on him. It was unbelievable. This quote from Attenborough really nails it. She had forged a connection so deep, it went beyond words. She taught us how to see them, and in turn, they saw us. All right, so everything we've talked about so far has been this incredible story of discovery and connection. Well, this is where the story takes a very, very dark turn. Digit, he was a young silverback, and he was Fossey's absolute favorite. He was killed by poachers. He died defending his family, and for a souvenir, they hacked off his head and his hands. For Fossey, this wasn't just losing a research subject. This was the murder of a family member, and it absolutely broke her. It changed everything. After Digit's murder, Dian Fossey declared war. The scientist was gone, and in her place was an avenger. She started what she called active conservation, and let me tell you, it was extreme. She wore masks and used tricks to convince poachers she was a witch practicing dark magic. She would capture them, tie them up, interrogate them. She burned their camps, their homes. She was fighting fire with fire. She was on a mission to protect her gorillas at any cost, and she made a lot of very dangerous enemies along the way. Quick break. If you're enjoying this episode, please hit that subscribe button. Do it now. I'll wait. Okay, thank you. Leave a review too. 5 stars, maybe 6 if your app lets you hack the system. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell that one coworker who always microwaves fish in the office. They need this. They need it bad. This timeline really puts her journey into perspective. You see her start the research center in 67. Then, boom, 79, David Attenborough's visit makes her and the gorillas world famous. But all that active conservation, all that fighting, it was putting her on a collision course with some very powerful people. And it all leads to that final, tragic date you see there. And there it is, the day after Christmas, 1985, Dian Fossey was found dead, murdered in her own cabin with a machete. It was a shocking, brutal end. But the craziest part, to the people who knew her and saw the war she was waging, it wasn't a total surprise. One colleague even said they were almost waiting for it to happen because she had made so many enemies. And that leads us to the biggest question of all, the one that still hangs over her story like the Rwandan mist. Who did it? This is where the nature documentary ends and the true crime story begins. Because after all these decades, her murder is still officially unsolved. Okay, so let's look at the suspect board. Theory 1. Her own research assistant, Wayne McGuire. He was actually convicted by the Rwandan government, but he fled the country, and many people think he was just a convenient scapegoat. Theory 2, the obvious one,
poachers and smugglers. She was, as a friend put it, literally standing in the way of certain individuals making money. And finally, Theory 3, local officials and business interests who wanted to bring in tourism, an idea Fossey hated. Basically, she had angered everyone from the bottom to the top. The real killer has never been brought to justice.
Her violent death was a tragedy, but it did something she never could in life. It made her story immortal. The 1988 movie, Gorillas in the Mist, was a massive hit. It got 5 Oscar nominations, and suddenly, millions of people all over the world knew who Dian Fossey was, and more importantly, they knew about the mountain gorillas she died to protect.
But forget the movie, forget the murder mystery for just 1 second. This chart right here, this is her ultimate legacy. Her methods were controversial. Sure, but look at that graph. The mountain gorilla population was plummeting towards extinction, and then it started to climb. The work she started, the attention she brought to their plight, it worked. Dian Fossey saved them. Period. In the end, she rests where she belongs. In the mountains she called home. She was buried in the very same graveyard she had built for her gorilla family, right next to her friend, Digit. The words carved on her headstone say everything you need to know about her life. No one loved gorillas more. And that wraps up today's deep dive into the life, brilliance, and still unsolved murder of Dian Fossey. Her courage helps save the mountain gorillas. And honestly, she's the kind of scientist who makes the rest of us feel like we need to step up our game. Special thanks, as always, to our legendary producer, FireflyHaku, the man, the myth, the human Swiss Army knife. If Fossey had Haku in Rwanda, the murder case would have been solved in like 2 days, maybe 1.5 if he skipped lunch. Thank you, listeners, for hanging out with me today. Take care, stay curious, and remember, if you ever hear rustling in the bushes, just assume it's a gorilla and slowly back away. Johnny?